my name's Paige. Welcome to my channel. So recently, as you've been able to tell, I've been posting a lot of videos about what I've read recently, what I've been wanting to read recently, and I realized that I never did the new to booktube or booktube newbie tag, and I feel like that's kind of important. It's a series of 10 questions that asks me about why I started this channel, what kind of books I like to read, just a little bit more about me as a bookworm. So we'll get into that when these motorcycles go away. Yeah. Rock on, man. They're still going, so yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, if you're new to my channel, my name is Paige. I really like books, I really like cats, I really like life sometimes, I guess, and I started this channel. This is the answer to the first question, which is, why did you start this channel? I started this channel because I really like books, and sometimes I feel like there's no one to talk about books with. I do have a couple friends who read, but you know, we're not always reading the same things at the same time, and I've been watching BookTube for a very long time and kind of wishing that I could have like at least a relationship with some of the people in this community so that I could talk about what I'm reading at the time that I'm reading it and like freak out with other people. My schedule is usually so far to post 2 videos a week, so I've been doing Thursday and Saturday, Sunday, and that's because in answer to the second question, which is what are some fun and unique things that I have to bring to YouTube, I want to do some more vlogging, hopefully. I think everything will be loosely related to books at least, but I think I want to do a little bit more vlogging. I do like to travel, as you've been able to tell from my England vlogs, and I just think that would be a lot of fun. I've seen other booktubers do reading vlogs, but I'm hoping to bring a little bit more of other things into that, because I also like to game, I also like to draw. I drew that back there, that's why he's back there. That's why Ronan Lynch is back there as signed by Maggie Stiefwater. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm looking forward to when it comes to YouTube and BookTube. The third question is, what am I most excited about for this new channel? And like I said, I think it's just gonna be me talking to people, not even necessarily famous booktubers, even though, you know, I've been watching them for a long time. Emma Books, The Clockwork Reader, but I am also looking forward to just talking to people in the booktube community, not necessarily creators, but active commenters, just that sort of thing. The fourth question is, why do I love reading? I feel like this is a little bit of a hard question to answer, but I will start off by saying that I was an English major in college, and that was because I always really enjoyed the way that books made me feel. I think maybe there's a stigma against escapist literature, and maybe that's what I like the most, to escape inside of a book and feel like I'm in a different time, a different place, with different people. But that's what I've always really loved about books, and I will continue to love books for that, because I feel like I've made a lot of friends. I feel like I've been a lot of places just because I've read so many books. With that being said, you know, a lot of the books that I've read, I now want to actually go to those places. It's not like I've read a book and I'm like, oh, well, I've been there now. So, no, it's like I have a list of places that I want to go now, like a map. The fifth question is, what book or series got me into reading? This is kind of a hard question to answer, but I'm going to answer with 2 different series because I feel like that's fair. When I was really young, when I was like in elementary school or even before, I think it was the Harry Potter series that got me into reading, and not even just the Harry Potter series, but specifically my grandma. She had the Harry Potter audiobooks on cassette tape, and she had my grandparents had a sound system in their house, so we would put in the tapes, we would lay on her bed and just listen to Harry Potter for hours on end, and I feel like that series got me into reading, but specifically listening to that series on audiobook with my grandma got me into reading. Now, there was kind of a gap where I didn't read a lot. I was into theater for a long time, which kind of pulled me away from reading and stuff, but I think maybe around 11 years old. I mean, there were some books in between here, of course, but I feel like maybe around 11 years old, I found the Darkest Powers series by Kelley Armstrong. I mentioned this series in my every book I've read so far in 2019 because I was talking about her other series, Rockton. But one day, I honestly can't even remember how this happened. I feel like I've read the series so much ever since I found it that I can't even remember where it started. But I guess one day I went into Barnes & Noble. You know, it was like one of those trips I made with my dad because he was like, he always knew that I liked Barnes & Noble. So we went there. I must have picked it up. I read it. I read The Summoning first. It's the first in the series. And after that, man, it was like an explosion in my mind. Admittedly, I kind of only stuck to Kelley Armstrong books for a little bit after that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, not only is her writing good, but I mean, because of that obsession that I had with her books, specifically that series, there's like 2 trilogies, I think, it connected in the same world. So after I got done with all of those books, because I had to wait, you know, years for each one to come out, then, you know, I was back into the reading flow, and then I was reading things like Twilight and The Hunger Games and all of those super known books. I kind of miss myself at that age, you know, reading just anything that I found in Barnes & Noble, because I hadn't discovered Goodreads at that point. I mean, I think I knew about it, but I wasn't old enough, or like I didn't care enough to be a part of that community yet. And because of that, when we used to go into Barnes & Noble, I would just look around until I found something that I said, well, that looks cool, and it had nothing to do with whether it was popular or not. And I kind of missed that. I kind of miss those times. You know, I would just go to Barnes & Noble, I would look around, I'd be like, you know, this cover looks cool, the synopsis looks cool, and it didn't matter if there were reviews on it. It didn't matter that I didn't hear that anyone said anything about it, because I'd never heard anyone say anything about any book at that point in my life. I didn't even know anyone who read. But anyway, let's continue. So the 6th question is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? So I kind of already mentioned a couple of my favorite booktubers: Emma Books, A Clockwork Reader, Peruse Project, Thoughts on Tomes. I mean, I think I would have a lot of questions for them. I think mostly I would ask how they juggle what they do, because I think most, if not all of them, have, you know, other jobs. You know, they're not just booktubers. So I think my question would be, how do you balance that? And especially because being a booktuber, it's not just about making a video and editing it and getting it uploaded. It's also about reading the books that you're going to talk about in every video. You know, a lot of booktubers I know read at least 4 to 5 books every month, and then, you know, they have to do reviews on those, sometimes on BookTube, sometimes on Goodreads, sometimes on Instagram. So I'm just kind of curious how they balance it, because it is a tough job. You know, when it's just about reading, when it's just about reading what you like and maybe talking about it with your friends, that's a whole different ballpark from writing actual reviews or talking about a specific book and remembering the plot line and what you liked and what you didn't like, because as I'm finding out, that's not as easy as it sounds. So the 7th question kind of goes in line with that. It's, what challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? And I do think that will be the hardest challenge, just balancing everything that I'm doing currently. I mentioned being in college, and I am hoping to pursue maybe a master's in English literature eventually at some point. I'm hoping to get an education position, either in secondary education or in higher education at some point in my life. So obviously that's a lot of schooling, that's a lot of work, and I think it'll obviously be a challenge to keep up with 2 videos a week about books that I'm reading. But that's also why I think vlogs are a very good idea, because not only do you get to take your followers with you to the places that you like to see and you enjoy, but it also gives you a chance to talk about what you're reading at that very specific point in time. And hopefully if people watching have read the book that you're talking about, then they can kind of experience the book you're reading as you're reading it. So, you know, you're at a really exciting point, you can talk about the fact that, oh my gosh, this just happened. And I just really like that idea. So I think that'll make it a little less hard to keep up with this channel if I can do some vlogs and share my time with you guys. Jaxie. I had to pick this guy up because he was going to destroy my camera. So anyway, the next question is, when did I start reading? And I think apart from school, I started reading for my own enjoyment pretty early. I started probably in 1st grade because I would read, because he's like kicking me with his foot, but he doesn't like want to move, so I don't get it. Yeah, I started reading probably in 1st grade of my own accord, apart from like school reading. And apart from the audiobooks with my grandma, because that started really early. So I would read things like, I can't even remember the names of the books I used to read, but I used to really love Goosebumps. I know that for sure. I collected the movies, but I also had the books, so I really enjoy. I mean, I've always enjoyed scary stories, and I remember when I was really young, my dad would take me to Barnes & Noble and get me like those little book of horror stories, you know what I mean, like the little tiny ones that are like really thick. He would get me those, and I really loved anything scary. Like, I was watching The Ring at like age 10. I'm going to adjust this because he's weighing down my chair a little bit, even though you wouldn't think so. Never mind, he doesn't like it when I move. Okay, so it's okay. So the next question is, where do you read? So I feel like I read pretty much anywhere, and I'm really not joking about that. Like, especially when I was younger, I would follow my mom around the grocery store with a literal book and just walk behind her reading in like Walmart. Admittedly, I still do that. If I don't go to Walmart for a specific purpose, you know, for myself, then I'm usually going there just to hang out with my mom, so why not take a book? You know what I mean? Like, if I have the Kindle version, I'm gonna bring the Kindle and I'm gonna be like a more acceptable human being in public. But if I don't and I have a book that I'm really enjoying, then like, why not take it? Like, people have their phones out all the time. I can have my freaking book, okay? But like, more typically, I usually read in my room or just in the living room. It's really not that exciting. Like, when school was like in session, then I would read like in the study center, or I would go to the library. But since school is not in session, I usually just read inside in my house, because I know the idea of reading outside is really nice, but like actually reading outside is kind of terrible. There's like too much wind, it's too hot, there's so many bugs. I sound like I never leave my house, and that's pretty accurate, so that's why I'm so pale. Anywho, the last question in this tag is, what kind of books do I like to read? I feel like typically I'm usually reading some sort of fantasy, whether it's urban or not. I used to read more young adult than I do now, even though I do still read quite a bit of it. But yeah, young adult, Once Upon a Time. He's gone now, so he left me with a good old scratch. Once upon a time, I used to exclusively read young adult because I always kind of had the impression that regular adult novels, whether they were fantasy or mystery or just fiction, were boring. I was completely wrong about that, but that was just my perception about things. So now, honestly, I usually crave more adult novels, even when they are young adult. Like, I'm looking for that maturity in novels. Oh my god, look how red that's getting. Ow. He literally wanted up. Cats are so unpredictable. But apart from fantasy, I do usually like mystery and thriller. I do like fiction sometimes, historical fiction occasionally. It has to be pretty good. I do like romance novels occasionally, but they do have to be paired with like a bigger plot line. I'm not usually looking for just like a romantic story. Like, I'm looking for something that's going to make an impression on me apart from the relationship in the story, even though I'm okay with it being like the focal. I don't know. I like romance sometimes, okay? I read sci-fi sometimes, not very frequently, and I also don't read a lot of nonfiction, even though I would like to change that. I did read Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, and I read I Am Malala, and I've read a bunch of memoir, especially Paul Auster and Michael Ondaatje. I really liked their writing. I just, for some reason, haven't read a lot of nonfiction. I think it has to do with what I mentioned earlier about liking escapist literature and not being able to find that escape in nonfiction because it's real. I honestly think what I would like to read really depends on my mood, because even though I usually like fantasy, if I pick up a fantasy novel at a point in time where like I could probably go for like a mystery novel instead, or even just not be reading, then I cannot enjoy it and it can be a wonderful book. That's why I'm kind of skeptical about reviews a lot of the time, like not all reviews, but like very specific like star reviews, because I feel like My review of a book can change completely depending on the day, the time of the day, the year. Every single aspect or part of my life can change how I feel about a book at a certain time. Like, for example, I've started a lot of books, I've started a lot of TV shows that I couldn't get through at some point in my life, and then I would return to them years later and be like, this is my favorite thing. Like, this is my favorite thing ever. Simply because my circumstances had changed, because my mindset was different. So for that reason, I am a little bit skeptical about reviews. With that being said, that's the end of the questions. But when I do book reviews in the future, I might mention, hey, I gave this like this many stars on Goodreads, but always keep in mind, I'm never judging a book thinking, well, this is how I'm going to feel about this book forever, this is how I was always going to feel about this book, because I just don't have that belief. In every book that I review, I'm thinking, you know, someone out there at some time is either really going to love or really going to hate this, regardless of what I thought about it, because I'm different from them. And I think maybe that's another thing that I kind of want to bring to BookTube, is just being neutral while at the same time being like, hey, this is where I am specifically. If you're in the same place, you might think the same way. Check it out. Yeah, so that's enough rambling about that. I did want to get that out there though. So guys, that was the end of this video. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on myself and why I'm doing this and how much I love books, because I do love books a lot, and I'm really looking forward to growing my craft in BookTube and meeting people. So if you are watching this, if you're new to my channel, if you're not but you haven't said anything so far, please comment below and tell me who you are and say hi and tell me what kind of books you like. I love to get book suggestions, by the way, so if you watched any of my videos and you've thought to yourself, hey, she really likes this book, I think she would also like this book, then tell me. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or even Goodreads, then feel free to private message me and we can talk about a book even. So anyway, I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July, or you are just going to have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you back here on Thursday.